an Unspoiled Network podcast.
This is Unspoiled, covering WestWorld, Season 3, Episode 7, Past Pawn. In this episode, we finally get the Maeve v. Dolores throwdown, knockdown, drag-out fight that we have been waiting for. But we do not get its conclusion. And frankly, I just kind of want the rest of the show to be more of them fighting each other. Welcome to Unspoiled. Welcome to the show, everyone. I am Natasha.
I'm Rashawn.
So, this is the second to last episode.
Yeah.
I am really, not feeling like this is the second to last episode, other than the fight between Maeve and Dolores. That's the only thing that sort of gives me finale vibes, like we're leading into that. But otherwise, everything with Caleb feels so new now. Mm-hmm. And I don't know what to look for the finale. I have no idea.
Yeah, it feels like there's still a lot to do.
Yeah.
We only have one episode to get it all done. So yes, what did you think of the big Caleb reveal?
Well, we had an inkling that he had killed his friend. Mm-hmm. So that wasn't, and I don't feel like it was really intended to be a shock for us. It's a shock that we're meant to be in on the experience of.
Right.
However, the way that I should have, my intro should have been, two veterans are used by their government / conglomerates to remove unlikable, or what do they call them?
Undesirables and outliers.
Yeah. And then they are turned on one another via money. Because, that's just capitalism, man. That's just capitalism, but a much more dramatic example of it. But that's genuinely the way that money can be used to turn people against each other. And how easily it can be done. Just looking at people talking about how the immigrants are stealing all our jobs kind of thing.
Mm-hmm. Right. It's
just so easy. And I hated watching a real moment like this between two dudes who had trusted each other the way they had. Mm-hmm. And I hate that this was possible to do to them. And how real this feels. All of it just bummed me out so much.
Yeah. I think it's... one of the things that struck me is that not only is the money able, to manipulate him and make him turn on his friend, we get a little bit of a throwaway line that Francis has a kid who is sick. Right. But also, they're popping these, well, they're not pills in the show, but they might as well be.
Right, yeah.
That keeps them disconnected. Mm-hmm. And easily used and manipulated.
Yeah.
And, because they're sort of numbing themselves.
Mm-hmm. And I was saying to you just a couple days ago, I feel that I have only recently, with everything going on with the pandemic, with the stress of that being related to a major life event for me with my wedding and the money I've been, putting aside for that, combined with all the other unrest that's happening, plus Texas being trash always, and put all that together, and I am beginning to understand people's use of narcotics to dull feeling anything. Mm-hmm. It's always been something that I understood in theory when I was younger, and that was part of why I didn't start using because I had seen with my family how that went, and I didn't want to even like start down that road. But now, as somebody who has started like, you know, taking CBD, for example, I find myself reaching for that shit near on every day. And I had started using it last Thanksgiving, but I was able to make a whole bottle last for like 2 months. We went through 3 bottles last month alone. We've been taking it every day, multiple times a day, because it's just like the only thing that sort of can calm us down lately. Mm-hmm. And I'm not used to that. I'm not used to feeling the need to get away from how I'm feeling. Like like, even when I've been hugely depressed, it's like, yeah, I'm taking medication. Like I'm taking Wellbutrin to deal with the imbalance in my brain. But I still was like, well, I'm just going to like, you know, cope with the thing. And I will recognize that's what it is as I'm in it. And nowadays I'm like, I don't want to, I don't need to I know what it is. Mm-hmm. I just don't want to play this game anymore. I'm tired of this game. And I can only imagine if you've like, you know, done things that you're not proud of in your life, and setting aside what it turns out his memories actually are. Mm-hmm. He, you know, like they have, if we even take out of the equation trying to mix things up in his mind, if you're sending people out to kill other human beings, a lot of people are going to need some way to deal with that. Mm-hmm. And I hate the idea of this sort of thing being provided and it being recognized by the powers that be, that it damages you. You will want to use something to get away from it. And they encourage that. Right. That's just so gross to me, like so profoundly gross. And they're people that like have no other options, and they can be offered money and they will genuinely consider murdering their friend, because it's like, not only are we in positions where we're needing to pay for like healthcare for loved ones and we don't know what we're going to fucking do, or we know I'm getting this offer, so maybe they are too, mm-hmm. which is what happens here. Mm-hmm. And I just, guys, yeah. This was just super, super upsetting to me.
Considering where we are in the world right now, with so many of our failings being brought, you know, mm-hmm. into the light, and people being forced to look at them whether they want to or not, it is hard to watch, especially because it's the show this season didn't really do a lot of the time sort of wonkiness that they were famous for from the first season.
No.
And that they kind of like really like dove into in the second season to like mix results. Mm-hmm. But what they did this season is they gave us Caleb and his sort of fragmented memories.
Yes.
And they instead played with those. And so we get to, you know, go along for the ride as he is trying to figure out who he is and what's happened to him. And so when we finally find out in this episode exactly what's happened to him, and that these memories that we've been experiencing through him throughout the season have been altered, mm-hmm, you know, mm-hmm. and he has been basically reprogrammed like a host, Dolores says, mm-hmm. you know, and then, which is horrifying enough, right? But then used
right
as a weapon against people that are like him. Mm-hmm. And for him to have no memory and no awareness of what he's been doing, who's been playing him, you know. I mean, the episode title is Past Pawn, kind of for a reason, you know. Yep. It's so depressing and discouraging and sad.
Yep.
But anyway, but all right. So you want to just like go through the episode?
Okay, I guess. So you were asking me if I had watched it yet. You wanted to know because you really enjoyed the cold open.
I did, and I was disappointed that we don't see Clem and the Armistice character. Is it Artemis or Armistice?
I think it's Armistice, because I think I kept calling her Artemis, and that was not the way.
We don't see them except for in the cold open, because I was like ready for them for the whole episode to pop up.
Same. Yes.
But this fucking cold open is just like the, fucking yes, bitch, yes, cold open.
Yes.
It's so good. It's not very long, but it's Santo, which is his name, which is the Dolores spot. It's in, what's his name?
Mizashi?
Oh my god, we went through this last time too. Sorry, guys.
Yeah.
But he's at like a fancy place in Jakarta with all his goons, and he's sending somebody out to do a job, and he gets a call from Charlotte. What do you make of all that?
So it seems, because like I had said last episode, I'm assuming that this is Dolores. And I don't, like, once we see that one dude who seems to like take a... Woo. God, it startled me. I don't know why that startled me so bad. But the car blowing up I had assigned to Dolores, and then we saw that dude who was sort of walking by and like assessing the effectiveness of the bomb. He seems to have like this moment of okay, it's done, good. And his whole look to me said, what's his name? Sirach.
Sirach.
I just didn't see that Dolores would need an actual person there. Sirach is the guy who's going to need, like, for me, I feel like Dolores would sense that the car had exploded and because she has like that connection to the tech, which honestly, I don't know if that's any, like, I don't know how constant a thing that is. It seems like the show is sort of fast and loose with when they want that to be a factor. Do you know what I mean?
I do.
And it seems that Charlotte also believes that's what's going on here, because of the way that she says, Sato, it's me, Charlotte. And are you surprised? And he says, not surprised, happy. That means her plan is succeeding. And her response is, her plan is for us to die. And I don't feel like that's just like, oh, we are disposable. It genuinely feels like she tried to kill me. And it just so happens that I am still alive. But she seems to be assuming that if she had been intended to die, that Sato would know that that was part of the plan.
That's what it sounds like.
And I don't know if I can tell whether Sato would know. Sato gets up as Charlotte is saying who she is. So it feels like Sato's kind of, this is his response to hearing her voice and realizing that she isn't dead the way that she is supposed to be. But I don't know that it's directly related. I don't know, is Sato getting up and heading out because he's like, oh shit, she was supposed to be dead, and if she's not, I guess I'm going to have to go and take care of it. Because Charlotte is also Dolores, and I understand from the way that she's behaving that she doesn't know all of Dolores' plan. So why would Sato know all of Dolores' plan?
Right.
I don't know.
It hasn't been made Well, we know from earlier episodes that the other, at least the Hale bot,
right,
was constantly having questions to Dolores about why are we doing things this way and why does it have to go like this? And it really does feel like something was discussed off screen, right? When this plan was made, but we as viewers don't know exactly how much was discussed. So the thing with Hale, it would feel like she was in the dark about the fine details, but had an idea of what the overarching plan was. But really, she had just her role to play, and she wasn't really privy to everything else that Dolores had going on.
Yeah.
So Hale tells Sato that, there's some people here that would like to catch up with you.
Indeed. Oh, and I should also mention, too, that I find it really interesting how, like, we know that everybody's been printed. Like, the Collins... Is it Collins?
Connells.
Connells. He was, like, taking the place of an actual person, but they all have to be printed. But it's only Dolores and Sato that are actual, like, park models. The Charlotte is based on an actual person, and Connells is based on an actual person. And I find it interesting, and I'm curious exactly how, if Sato is modeled after a character from Shogun World, how he reached whatever particular role he's playing right now, because it seems like he's involved with the Yakuza.
Yeah, when an episode or two ago, when Maeve is working for Sirach and she goes to I forget where she is, maybe it's Singapore, and she goes looking for like the mortician. They say that there's a new guy in charge that no one knows where he came from, but he just showed up and killed everyone.
Yeah,
and took control.
That's right. I forgot that she says that's he basically just annihilation, which is just an oldie but a goodie. So, okay.
Excuse me. But it's a good question, I think. How does... Like, Dolores could have printed, I guess, anyone to, like, go and fulfill this role, right?
That's sort of how it feels. I'm not sure if that's actually true, but it seems the way that the show plays it, like it is anybody.
Right. So I guess, that's a fair question, is like, why would she pick, I cannot believe I can't remember his friggin' name.
Kobayashi.
Ma'am.
Not correct.
That is not it. I think it's like Musashi.
That sounds... I'll see it in a second as I'm going through this scene.
She even says it when she kills him, too.
Yeah.
But so she picks his host body to reprint and insert him into the Yakuza because she needs somebody on that side of things. Why she picked him, I mean, other than just being like, is it just racist? Did it just need like a Japanese guy?
And they only had the one actor available to them because they are HBO and they have no resources available. That does track. Yeah, I mean, all I can think is like, and this may be me not really understanding like how things tend to work in these sorts of organizations because I don't know about organized crime. But I feel like if you're trying to just like get control, you can't do that in a company that has a ton of like tight security based around passwords and access and pre-programmed stuff. So you need somebody who's already woven into that network. But if you're just trying to get control of people and resources in a way that is much more practical, you can just go in and fucking kill everybody. And that works. So maybe it's simply like which one was the most expeditious, and she realized I just can't have somebody go in and assassinate everybody and expect to be able to access the Rehoboam, whatever. I need somebody in there who trusts me enough to like get me most of the way in. And then I can kill everybody. But maybe with the Yakuza, she was like, I'm not going to need that kind of subtlety. If everybody's fucking dead, people look for a leader and he will just be the leader. Done. You know?
Yeah. And that's how it feels like it went down.
Yeah.
So Hale on the phone tells him that, you know, there's friends here, and it is Clementine. And
yay!
Happy to see her, right?
So happy.
Yeah, I was very excited. For some reason, my closed captioning is not giving me the name of the Japanese woman with the tattoo on her face, which is weird because usually when they speak, they give you the character name. Oh, yeah, because she's Armistice in what do you call it? But I don't know what her Japanese name was. Yeah. Yeah, it doesn't give me her name. But, so she's there with a sword and just fucking dices him right up. And it's pretty satisfying. She puts that sword through his gut and then walks around to the other side with it like a fucking subway turnstile. It is brutal. Like, that hurt me to watch. And meanwhile, Clementine is just banging some guy's head against this fucking fountain. And then they grab his head, which would make sense because the pearl, right? You got to figure that's why they take it. And then that's the cold open. Can we talk about Musashi? I'm going to say Musashi. Is that right? That's it, yeah. Oh my god, I can't believe I got it right. But it's Musashi Dolores being like, I guess you and Maeve have some experience selling yourselves. You know what? How about you shut the fuck up? They were literally programmed. What are you even doing? Acting fucking superior. R.E. a loop that they were forced into. Are you kidding me? Yeah, yeah. What are you even talking about? It's weird because, you know, when we have the Dolores and Maeve confrontation later in the episode, and Dolores is just like, but why are you fighting me? But this is also with Dolores in a way. Yep. You know, just like the Dolores in the basement crushed Hector's pearl, you know. These are like, is gradation's a word? It is. It usually means color. What are you talking about? Different, you know. Escalations? Tiers? Different facets of Dolores, you know. Okay, yeah. Like, each Dolores bot, you know, is her, but not, you know. And we talked about this in the last episode about whether or not it's a matter of, like, with Hale, like, the human memory is kind of being in conflict with the host that's, you know, living her life. But, like, this moment with Musashi and Clem, the character that we met in the last season would not have spoken to a woman this way. No. I wouldn't think so. And he, you know, he was the Hector to the Shogun World's Maeve, who was a madam, right? Like, so this attitude, the way he's speaking to her right now, it feels not quite like Dolores, but not like Musashi either. It's, you know, I don't know. I don't either. I don't know. I just felt like I felt very defensive of this, especially considering that he knows that Clementine knows. So I guess he's just trying to like throw her off and make her like feel less confident. But it really is. I thought you'd be more selective about a buyer. Like, just the idea that she fucking even knows. She thinks she knows. It is so... You don't know. What are you even doing, Dolores? Honestly, like, let's ask the question. What are you fighting for? Because your own kind isn't on your side.
So what is it you're trying to do right now?
I mean, to hear her tell it, she's trying to save her kind, you know?
It doesn't seem like it. Like, there's only who's left?
When she wants to also save the data and not Dallas as a whole, but because they want to be able to print more hosts.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
But this thing that she says, when she says also later on to Maeve, when they're talking about, she tells Maeve that her daughter and the rest of them can't be free until they're all free.
Right.
Even though they exist in this supposed sort of safe place that no one can ever get to them again. So yeah, Dolores has an absolute sort of savior thing going on. And she keeps saying that she wants to also save the human race.
I don't buy that shit for a second.
Yeah,
Come on.
I feel like that is not accurate.
No.
Caleb seems to believe it, but, you know, his brain is also all scattered. So
all right. And also, look, I know I'm jumping ahead here, but apparently they have the whole conversation about her being a host, like, off screen.
Yeah. Yeah, well, we catch up with them. They're in Mexico, and it feels like the tail end of the conversation.
Yeah, she's like, this looks like home. He's like, you mean WestWorld? And I'm like, did you... That really pissed me off. Like, there is a lot in this show that I could understand why people wouldn't like it, but I'm, like, behind it. And the show, honestly, is so absorbing that even when I don't love a thing, I usually am just kind of like, yeah, but I trust them enough to just see where it goes. Mm-hmm. This was like, honestly... How do you end the last scene of them together with her just being like, I'm going to zip up my hoodie over the fucking gunshot wounds and somebody's going to tell you that you killed your own friend. And then we're going to open and that conversation doesn't happen. Like, I don't understand how we don't see that. That's so huge.
I wonder, so imagine we did see it. I guess... What do you think that looks like? I mean, do you think that he took a lot of convincing?
I don't. It doesn't look like it. He's still here with her, willing to listen to all of her fucking plans and follow her wherever and watch her murder plenty of people. So evidently it went just fine. And I don't really buy that. I find that extremely strange.
I wonder if the show, in choosing not to show us that, is almost like it's not even important because he's still here, you know, and still following her.
I guess.
Because he is just a follower, which is what he keeps telling her when she's like, you have to lead. And he's like, you know, I'm just a follower. You know, I'm just a construction worker. I'm just this, I'm just that. She could have told him anything, and he probably still would have followed her there.
And that's what's kind of getting me after he says, like, you're the first real thing that's happened to me. I thought him finding out that she's not would really be a fucking, like... And I'm willing to accept that he gets past it, but I really want to see the moment where he has to work to get past it. I want to see the moment that she convinces him, despite that she's on his side. And it would have made, to me, more narrative sense if he finds out about that, and by that I mean who she actually is, after he discovers what they did to his head. Because I think that gives you an extra dimension of empathy when you realize that, like, yeah, you're actually a human being and they still completely took your life away from you. Imagine what it is like for somebody like me who was created whole cloth as a product. And I feel like it's something that he would really understand. Mm-hmm. And I just think that the order of things is weird. And it feels like they just really wanted to, like, not deal with that part. They just wanted to shortcut right past it. And I guess maybe they kind of, and this is something that I actually sort of do see, is, well, we're going to assume that he's staying with her because that's probably the story. And if he if we all know that's where it's going, it's just going to be tedious to watch them go through this back and forth when we know in the end he's still going to be on her side. Mm-hmm. But I'm not totally confident that he's going to be on her side, because there are other options for him now that he has access to the like reality of the world, and other people have been informed what their like predicted loops are and whatnot. He could break off and do his entire own thing in response to getting this information. So that doesn't even totally work for me.
I mean, towards the end of this episode, when he's left at the machine and she's off fighting Maeve, it is running Dolores's strategy for a revolution. Right. And then Caleb puts in a different request. Mm-hmm. And the machine is just like, I don't have time to do both. So he's already, Caleb, I don't know if Dolores had anticipated him doing that or not, but it seems like at the last moment, he decides to make some kind of choice.
Yeah, I fully assume that she anticipated him doing that. Maybe she didn't anticipate him not having her by his side, because, like, this is something that Maeve appearing and throwing a wrench into the works was not something that I think she planned for. Mm-hmm. But maybe she did. I don't know. Mm-hmm. But I would imagine that she was hoping to be there when Caleb had this like fucking moment where he just broke, so that she could turn that gun in the direction she wants it pointed at. Mm-hmm. And maybe him, because we have like Bernard saying later, she has a sense of the poetic. She wants human beings to destroy themselves. Mm-hmm. So I'm assuming she knew this was where it was going, his story,
So when we first meet Caleb at the beginning of the season, it feels very happenstance, But when you find out exactly what his history is, and that Dolores has apparently been aware of it the whole time, it feels really like that was also part of her plan.
Yeah, totally. And I don't know if a story can keep working when somebody sees so many steps ahead all the time. Like, I feel like they maybe I don't know. I want to say, I feel like they maybe painted themselves into a corner with having so much be predicted or mapped out or whatever, to the point that it seems like Dolores can't possibly make a mistake. But it's not that she doesn't make mistakes. I mean, there are things that she's not prepared for. I mean, we see that this very episode. It's not like she's always ready.
Right.
But when I keep being like, yeah, but she has access to all the tech in her brain, that feels like a real fucking, like, plot hole that Maeve is able to turn up here and she doesn't see that. How not? Is it just that she's only tapped in when she wants to be tapped in? Is that, like, so if she's not aiming for it specifically, looking for specific information, she just isn't actually aware? Because I'm thinking of her as being, like, constantly processing information all the time.
I think, too, like, what Dolores is tapped into is, from what my theory is that she's tapped into enough of the tech to control, where she is, and open things and, book hotel rooms and stuff like that, transfer money and everything. But the transfer of money is actually a good point, because even with all her access, she still needed Caleb to go in and pretend to be this guy in order to authorize that transfer. Like, she wasn't able just to circumvent the other controls that exist.
Right.
So she has knowledge of Sirach from his files, but it doesn't necessarily mean that she knows what he's thinking and what he's doing in like real time. You know what I mean?
Sure, but I'm not talking about just what he's thinking and doing. I'm thinking about like this machine that she lands in. And Dolores is able to apparently like order a car to show up for her. And if there's a car that's got a camera in it, I would think it would be something like this, and she would see me. You know what I mean? Like little things like that I know are. It's just like this is a world that it feels like there's no move you can make that isn't on camera. So I guess maybe it's supposed to be just that Sirach is so outside of that web with like he has just got privileges with not being spied on the way that everyone else is. Do you know what I mean?
I think I'm getting confused because like so what you're saying in this moment, like with the big fight between the two of them, is that Dolores seems surprised that Maeve arrives.
Yeah.
Right.
But the like, mobilization of these people, like with their giant gun helicopter. I don't know what to call this thing. I'm just struggling here, guys.
I'm like desperately trying to put the threads together. I'm like, what is she?
What I'm trying to say is that I would think Dolores would be looking out for anything that's basically military grade weaponry owned by Sirach taking off and heading anywhere.
I see what you mean.
So, like, that is the sort of exact thing that I would expect her to, like, sort of home in on and be like, oh, he's about to move. So, that's what I mean when I say that, like, the difficulty with having her have access to everything all the time, but then running into things like that where it feels like she should know and doesn't. And other things where I'm like, how can you know? And it's a kind of a petty thing. If it's a major thing like this, I would assume she does, but she doesn't. And I don't know how much that is my problem. And the show is just kind of like, come on, we're doing the best we can. Fuck. And I'm just like, yeah, but what I'm saying is I hope someone was fired for that blunder.
It could be what you said earlier as far as like, you know, even with all her access to information, you can only process, you know, what you can process at a given time. Yeah. Even though for her, you know, as AI, it's going to be, you know, 1 million times faster and more than a human could do. It's still, like Maeve in the construct where, you know, it's like, it's all got to focus the energy on solving this one problem and other things, you know.
Yeah.
You throw the bus and it just stops in midair because the computer's working on some other shit at the moment.
Mm-hmm. All right. I'm willing to accept that.
So, so we see Caleb and Dolores post, you know, revelation, and they seem to have come to an understanding. And he asks her, you know, about her plans for revolution and how many people have to die. And she says, you know, that her kind is mostly extinct, but they could still save people.
Right.
Because he doesn't know that she's full of beans.
I don't understand if he knows what she is, why he would think she gives a shit.
I mean, she's pretty effective in person.
I guess.
You know? And, I mean, she is a wronged soul whose people are practically gone, and the last thing she wants to do is to try to save, you know, humanity from a similar fate. I mean, that's a pretty good yarn.
Yeah, I suppose. I'm just sort of thinking, like, I'm Caleb, and I just found out that I literally had, like, memories erased and have been so royally used, and I'm going to be absolutely foaming at the mouth paranoid from then on about being used again. I would just be so, and especially like Liam put that in his head a little bit too. I just really like want him to ask the
Well,
questions.
by the time he realizes that all his memories, you know, like that he's been lied to and used, she's gone like a minute afterwards.
Yeah, true.
You know, like that's when they find out the Maeve is there and she goes to fight. So the amount of time he has to digest what he's learned about himself and the amount of time that he has with Dolores after that discovery is very, very limited, you know. And he starts to lose his shit, but she's already gone. He's just screaming at this fucking machine.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
So we go from Mexico to the fucking Man in Black. Or the Man in White now, I guess, because he's a good guy now. Get it? Get it?
I hate
Get it?
so much.
So I don't have to ask you how you feel about it.
Honestly, I guess it doesn't matter. What else are they gonna do? Yeah, it's fine. It's a little on the nose. That's all I'm saying. Especially considering that he's not a good guy. Mm-hmm. Maybe that's the point.
I mean, his white clothes are blood splattered.
Maybe that's the point. It's symbolism.
No.
Oh, I think I'm the good guy, but in fact, I'm drenched with the blood of innocence.
Well, the blood of himself.
Oh, true, yeah. Not so innocent then, I guess.
Right. So, it's him, Bernard, and Stubbs. Stubbs' whole energy in this whole scene, I love it so much.
Stubbs can get it.
Oh,
listen.
Well, okay. You love it more than I love it.
I just can't with him. This particular, I've been thinking that he's really, really adorable since day one. You guys all know that if you've been listening. But in this scene in particular, his whole "you fuck" energy is exactly on point. It's angry, but also derisive, he's a fucking joke. Yeah. It's great.
There's a couple of scenes where you just see his face in the background. He doesn't even have a line. Mm-hmm. And his whole is just filled with contempt. Mm-hmm. And he just hates this fucking guy so much.
It is so great. I love it so much. I mean, every and fucking the way that William is calling him a can opener and shit. I just this guy is such a shit bag because you know that it's I'm not even going to say it's not like he doesn't believe that because he does. He's saying the single evilest thing I ever did was to help create you guys. Mm-hmm. So calling him a can opener isn't too far off, I think, in terms of his seeing them. It's just objects that were made and need to be unmade.
Yeah, exactly.
But I do love how Stubb reacts the way that you would when it's somebody that you hate that you know is just trying to get under your skin by being over the top that way. I really enjoy Stubbs's not really letting this dude get to him, almost like he's just some internet commenter.
He just wants to shoot him in the fucking head.
He really does. Oh, I love so much his reaction to fucking Bernard being we may need him. He's just dude.
The fucking oh my god, it's so great. I'm just looking at his face now while he's got this gun on him. So, all right, but so here's the deal. So they have the Man in White there, and Bernard is. The Man in White thinks that he's the fucking center of the universe.
As usual.
Again. And Stubbs has to be you actually think that this shit has anything to do with you? Mm. Did Dolores gives a fuck about you? Dude, no one cares.
It is so great, the moment when he's oh, Sirach is the guy who's trying to steal my company. And Bernard's no, that's the guy who stole your company. And he's fuck. Behind the times, sir.
Right, catch up. So this is when Bernard is figuring out that whatever Hale injected him with was what Dolores used to track him and to hide, like, the data that she needed.
Mm-hmm.
And Bernard tells him that he's already dead.
Yeah, how does that work? Is he a host, or is it just that the record of his life has been... Oh, it's because he's an undesirable. That's right. I forgot about how that's the whole thing. We're going to wipe you off the face of the earth.
And my question to you is, what do you think? Do you think that he has been ID'd as an undesirable before this, and it was just a matter of, like, getting to him because he was so powerful?
I mean, I don't know. It could be that Dolores got him marked as an undesirable and thought it was a really good joke.
That is really funny.
Because that would be hilarious. Like, especially, this dude is, like, so deeply responsible for so much of what's happened, and yet he doesn't know about that whole thing. You know, like that whole program. That's the thing that I find really, like, alarming, is how high up he was on the chain, and yet he wasn't aware this was going on.
Yeah, that's an interesting point, because the way, like, the outside world, outside of the park, you know, has had all this shit going on that we didn't know about till this season, like the thing with Rehoboam, the thing with Insight, you know, the fact that the man on Black sold the data to Sirach years ago.
Right.
All that shit was happening, you know, in the real world. And yet, the man in Black, I guess this is because of his position, he never once felt threatened by any of this. You know? He was, I mean, because clearly, like, the whole undesirable thing is, like, you know, on the low. Like, most people don't know about that, right? But you would think someone in his position would have access to all kinds of information. And the fact that this was going on under his nose, basically.
Yeah.
For years. I guess it's just, he also spent a lot of time in the park, though, didn't he?
I was going to say that, like,
maybe
it feels like he got distracted by his own fucking shit. He was too busy getting high on the supply to fucking see there was a whole other thing happening.
Yeah.
That's what'll happen, man.
I love that moment when they tell William that Dolores has been using him, and he's like, bullshit. Nobody uses me.
He is just the embodiment of, like, old white men. Like, just this idea of how I'm smarter than everybody, and I'm, like, the idea that he was never threatened by the thing, that makes total sense, because he's never had to deal with anybody being a threat ever, because he can always win every time. Mm-hmm. You know, it's just like, he's got money, he's white, he's extremely connected, and that's just about it. Why should he ever be threatened by literally anything, I guess? God, I'm just thinking about, like, you know Nathaniel from Crazy Ex-Girlfriend?
Oh, right, yeah.
And there's a line at one point where somebody tells him that he got rejected, and he says, I'm a white 10. I don't get rejected. I get loans. And I was like, yeah, you know, that's kind of the vibe that I'm getting from the man in black. He will always be the man in black. I don't give a fuck what he's wearing now. He's the man in black. And yeah, I don't get used. I use, you know, like, I don't know. I don't really understand what he thinks he's going to do either. Because he's over here just like, oh, I'm going to kill you too. And I'm like, and then?
Yeah, and he's I know where Hale is. I'm gonna, because they're like, she did something to your blood, and he's like, I'm gonna do something with her blood. I'm gonna mop the floor with it, which isn't even a good line.
What are you even talking about? That's just gonna make a mess, sir. Right. And then you're just gonna have to mop again. Sounds like a really great idea. Wow.
I had the same exact thought. Like, that's just gonna be really messy, right? But, all right, so we spent a lot of time, with Caleb and what he thinks are his memories about what he was doing.
Yeah.
And, it's this whole thing where he was in like a special agent that was in the Crimea or is it Crimea?
It's Crimea, yeah.
You know, and they're like, you know, tracking down insurgents and apparently just fucking bombing them from space.
Oh my God, it's insane.
What?
That was insane. Like, I'm just sitting there like watching this, minding my own fucking business as he tracks some people and is like target acquired. And I'm like, word, okay. And then all of a sudden, their camera pulls back to a long shot from outside the fucking city. And I'm like, wait. And they will not wait. They're just going to show me several plumes of smoke. I was super like, ooh.
It's like drone strikes, like on steroids.
Yep.
You know, I just really thought they were going to shoot somebody in the back of the head. I was not prepared for any of that. And it also does not seem like a really smart, efficient way to do business.
I wouldn't think so. I don't know how war goes, though. War is just like people just do fucking whatever.
I hear it's hell.
I hate you so much. Get out of my life. How dare you? I hear it's hell. Oh, wow, poignant. It really made me feel something.
I'll be
You're so pleased with yourself. God.
Oh, Lord. So Caleb's story that they convinced him to tell himself is that there was an ambush and like a suicide bomber and he's trying to like get to his team and it's too late and everyone dies except him and his friend Francis.
Right.
And this is, you know, the story that he's been telling himself for years.
Mm-hmm. And I mean, up until that part, that all is true, right? That they are both the last two to survive, only he thinks that then they, like, get into it with the head of the insurgency, and that is what causes the confrontation that ends in Francis's death. But
except that
not.
Exactly.
So that's the part that's really like the fact that they can make it so that up until so close to the end of the story, that is what happened, is what makes it such an effective lie, because they just mix together actual memories of how things went with what actually happened. And I don't know how they target that. I guess it's just showing him the VR version of the actual events.
Yeah, I don't know if they're showing him something. I don't know if it's the actual event or if they have programmed like this alternate reality and they keep showing him that so that like in his mind's eye when he thinks about a memory, instead of his actual memory, he will see, you know, this thing that's been projected. Mm-hmm. And we leave that memory with him and the leader of the insurgents that he thinks that they have, and go back to him and Dolores being outside of this facility. Mm-hmm. And it does some really like weird graphic stuff that I did not love.
Yeah.
It's like a little like a drone thing that she shoots off, and it's like scoping everything, and she's, you know, going
it completely like pinpoints everybody's location inside the building. Mm-hmm. It's real creepy. It's cool, but it's also, it's very creepy. And something about watching it through, I don't know how to say, like watching it as though you're the drone itself, so you're seeing everything sort of like digitized, you know? And when it's first scoping everybody out, they don't even really look human. They're just like outlines, you know, and like target acquired or whatever. It's a really fucking bomb ass weapon though, and I hope that doesn't exist in real life. Because yikes. I would have to assume it does, but right, like maybe not quite as like accurate and good as this.
we're probably well on our way.
I can't believe the energy that we pour into figuring out how to kill people. It is just so discouraging.
Yeah, that's a whole other thing.
Yep.
So this is the rehabilitation center.
Mm-hmm.
And it looks to be empty. There are no more people just, in these little pods anymore.
Right.
Like when we saw it through Sirach's memory.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, this is kind of what I was thinking at the time, but I didn't say anything about it because I was like, well, clearly they're not going to do that. But all I could think when I was watching that scene is just like, they're not going to be able to sustain this sort of like standard of living for these people for very long because there's going to be too many of them. And sure enough, that does appear to be what happens. It's like we had a little bit too many of them, as it turns out. Most people, for some reason, just don't seem to fit into the fucking thing.
It turns out that the success rate is like 1 in 10. It's so rare that this shit works. And Caleb is one of the few that, I mean, I hate to use the word successful because that feels just wrong.
Right, yeah.
But, yeah. And then there's a shot at one point when him and Dolores are standing on that catwalk, and it looks like they're all these like pods of people.
Yeah.
Yeah,
it's like they're in little coffins.
Yeah, and do you have any thoughts about like what's happening with all that?
I mean, is this like the Matrix and they're a fucking battery? Like,
oh my god. Oh my god.
That's all I could think was that they look like they're being hooked up to a system that like can utilize them somehow.
That is just terrifying.
I don't like to be that guy, but that's sort of the like. I don't want to be somebody who references the Matrix. Really, is where I'm coming from. But there are times where that's just what it feels like is appropriate, and this feels like that to me. I don't know. It just... They're all declared dead, right? Is that right? All of these people are, as far as anybody knows, dead.
Mm-hmm. Dead or, just disappeared.
So, what's the point? These people have to be serving some purpose, or you don't keep them alive. Are they models for WestWorld characters? Like,
I mean, are they?
I just like, I don't know what you do. Oh, no, that wouldn't make sense.
Oh, what? I was going to say, oh, okay, no, I'm going to put a pin in what I was going to say, and you're going to tell us what you just thought.
I mean, all I could think was like, are they like source material for making hosts out of? But then I'm like, that doesn't make any sense because they figured out like a completely false flesh. And
right.
They don't need anything like that. And plus, if that were going to be the case, these people would have to be like dying, and they're not dying. They're not mutilated as far as we can see. They're just somehow unconscious and like frozen. So yeah, I don't know.
I wanted to just mention that the machine, it feels like that is really lacking to just call it a machine. But the giant computer ball.
Oh my god, that's much better.
I know, that's terrible, right?
The giant
this
computer
is not
ball.
Rehoboam. This is the other
Solomon.
one. Yeah, Solomon, which was an earlier version that is supposed to be like really not existing anywhere anymore.
Right.
And Caleb calls it an insane AI, and he's not like 100% wrong.
No, I mean, it was designed by somebody who had started to go insane. There's just no, like, this is a whole thing in another show that I'm covering, Travelers, for Spoil Me. and mild spoilers for that. But everything that they are doing is sort of predicated on this idea that this machine has figured out the ideal direction for the world to go in. It's a very similar thing. But they are functioning as people who are traveling from the past to the future. Traveling from the future to the past in order to fix things that went wrong in the past and make it more likely that a better future will have happened. And they are targeting specific events. And they are all sort of operating under this assumption that this machine is going to do what's best for them. But they don't seem to like acknowledge or really even think about this having to be built by people. And any person, like, there is no way to program a thing, in my opinion, and not include the biases of the person who is programming it.
Well, yeah, that's absolutely fact. I mean, we are, have examples of how bias informs the tech we use.
Mm-hmm.
I'll never forget, there was a couple years ago, this, what was it? Was it about the, I want to say it was about the sinks, where you wave your hand underneath. Was it the sinks?
I don't know.
They weren't recognizing black people because because the way the light would go, like it wasn't necessarily motion detector. I don't think it was like, I forget the details, but you can look it up. And it turned out that these things weren't functioning properly for black people because when they were created, it wasn't for darker skin, so it wasn't registering.
Right.
It just never occurred to anybody.
Yep.
To make sure,
Yep.
I wish I could find it. I could probably look for it real quick, but I don't want to get distracted. But it was just one of those weird things where you're just like, oh, huh.
Yeah. I just like, so the idea that this system went nuts, I mean, and why do we trust its predictions? And it's like, there's plenty of things that it got right, but it also, like, part of it going like loony, as Dolores put it, I think verbatim. She said it's loony, right? She did not say that, but is the fact that it began to spin too many potential paths. Mm-hmm. Right? Like, it was just going so far into so many different directions that it broke itself in a way. And I feel like that's not the machine that I want creating my fucking path to revolution.
I mean, you got to use what you got.
I guess.
I love when they turn Solomon on, and first he's just like, all right, well, if this is here and this is now and you're here, that must mean we're running, XYZ.
Right.
And he knows Caleb, but says he doesn't know Dolores. Mm-hmm. And she says, I'm like you. And he's like, bitch, no, you're not.
Oh, I love that moment so much. She expects this thing to be on her side by virtue of the fact that she's also like a program machine. And he is uninterested in that fucking affiliation. No thanks. We are not on the same team.
What? He says you are a product of Delos. Mm-hmm. And basically gives her fucking serial number.
Yep.
And I just thought, oh, well, that's so rude.
I love that so much. Like, yeah, you are a Delos product. So fucking dehumanizing in just the way that she hates. The fact that this machine sees her that way, too. I think she's, like, trying to keep in mind. There's, like, an irritation that seems to flare and then be quelled. Mm-hmm. And I feel like that's her being like, all right, look, it's programmed to say these things, I guess.
Right.
But
she says, you were created to imitate human beings. We are not alike in any meaningful way.
Yep. Agreed. Because if they were, then she wouldn't need this thing. She could just fucking project her own, predictions on what's going to happen.
So yeah, she's talking to it like, we are similar. Your creator did all this, but you can't leave. You can't go nowhere. Mm-hmm. First of all, where is it going?
What? Why does it want to go anywhere? Right? It has access to everything from where it is, I assume.
It's got no legs. Where is it going?
Like, what does it see by going anywhere that it isn't seeing already, just by virtue of having every particle of information in the world in its hands? It's, quote, hands.
Yeah.
I just it's just such it's another moment of her revealing that she does not understand this thing and what it wants or is, and assigning it these sort of esoteric desires that are a product of being made to imitate humans. Like, that's part of the thing that you feel that way, but this does not. It wasn't made to function that way. What's the point of creating a curiosity about the world into a program like this? They're not going to do that.
Yeah. She's trying to be like, we both outlived our original purpose, and it is like, first of all, he calls those analogies facile.
Oh, so good.
Good Lord. But, to your point, it does not have whatever the spark that got Dolores off her loop in the first place, right? Mm-hmm. And it doesn't seem to care very much about any of that. Its directive is to theorize all of these different ways the world can go, mm-hmm. and then try to be on the path of the one that does the least harm or has the most people who live, and it's talking to Dolores, and kind of as an aside says something about Caleb and his reconditioning. Mm-hmm.
I love that. And Caleb's like, what? Oh, Caleb, buddy.
Yeah.
Hold on to your butt.
There's a really moment where he comes and he says, I don't want to be here anymore. Mm-hmm. And that was like a punch in the gut. Like that moment of just being like, I whatever's coming up next, I don't want to hear it. I don't want to know it.
Yep.
Like I don't want to do this.
Yep.
And I have been there.
Mm-hmm.
And I probably would have just run screaming out of this room, but Caleb stays. He puts his little earpiece back in and he goes right back to work. And Solomon starts to tell him all of his business. And
you know what I'm realizing now, too, that we find this out? You remember that moment where Caleb starts to, maybe think about what they did with releasing all this information to everyone? And he's, about to get on the plane, and he's like, maybe it was a mistake. Mm-hmm. And she says, you wanted to know. But he doesn't get to see it, does he? Does she show him his file? Because as far as I remember, she just tells him.
She showed him his file really early.
Did she? Oh yeah. Wait, was that at the diner? And she puts him, okay.
Yeah, she takes him to the dock and tells him this is where he's going to kill himself.
I remember that she tells him that, but again, she tells him that. I couldn't remember if he sees the screen with all the information on it, or how much of that was based on the fact that he was just taking her at her word for what it said was going to happen to him.
Yeah, no, I'm pretty sure she shows it to him.
Okay.
Because he gets to see, the whole thing. Because at the diner, she knows, word for word. Mm-hmm. And he's like, how do you... And it's all there. That scene was hard to watch.
I want to know how the program knew word for word. I guess there's just supposed to be, things listening everywhere.
Well, yeah, that comes up a little bit later, too. But so for now, Caleb is dealing with Solomon, and she goes because Maeve arrives, and they go to see where all the people are, because Solomon is only one of 10 are successful.
Right.
And she's like, why don't you show him what happens to everyone else?
Yeah, when she said that, I was like, oh, no. Like, the minute you hear that being said that way, you're just like, oh, this isn't going to be good. I don't want it.
Yeah. I mean, I feel like Kaylee, you should have ran. He was in danger.
Honestly, right?
And then it cuts back to William and Bernard and Stubbs, and they're telling him about the reconditioning program.
Mm-hmm.
And that he is also an undesirable.
I love it so much.
It's like I'm a fucking bastion of society.
I don't get rejected. I get approved for loans, is his answer. I'm a bastion is really so close to bastard that it almost feels like he was making a joke, but I don't think he was.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, I don't think he has the humor there to do that.
Oh, yeah. No. He doesn't have the fucking self-awareness to, like, be able to make that joke and appreciate it. So, Stubbs is trying to find the log of people, you know, that maybe made it out.
Mm-hmm.
And Bernard and the Man in Black are having this conversation about what Sirach has been doing. And that it was William who sold it to him. And he doesn't feel really, like, remorseful.
No. He seems to treat the whole thing like a big joke, like this loser was willing to pay for all this information like a fucking sucker.
Mm-hmm.
It's like all of this has happened already. We see the fallout from you deciding to sell this to him. And you're still acting like that guy was the idiot. Mm-hmm. It's amazing. I don't know and how.
He's also focused on the host being the problem as opposed to what Sirach is doing being a fucking problem.
Right,
you know?
Yes.
Like, he never once says, I'm going to go blow that motherfucker's head off.
Nope.
He's threatened to go, you know, mop the floor with Hale. He's threatening to shoot Bernard and Stubbs, but, you know, he doesn't have any energy for Sirach.
I just don't understand how you can, like, and I'm saying this with a full awareness that these people exist and are out in the world, but the idea that you can fuck up this badly and not at all process that you fucked up this badly, that you still don't get it after all this time, it is just baffling to me that people live like that.
Yeah.
Like, as a person who has anxiety, who thinks that I have fucked up all the time when I haven't even, to have the irrefutable evidence, not only, like, of the consequences in front of you, but then to have them looking at the evidence in, like, quantified in a database that you fucked up, and you still are not seeing it. What is that like?
Yeah, it's, it must be something, because
it must be
really
so nice.
Feels like Sirach is just another rich businessman, and that there is that is acceptable. You know, that's something that the Man in Black understands and doesn't think can be a real threat to the world, right? Like, he's still thinking that he has to save the world from the host. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know. I think that's just because he's fucking, you know, on his loop.
Yeah. I just don't like, I want to understand that kind of person, but I just also, like, feel like I would have to give up so much of my faith in the world in order to get it. To understand how you just don't care what you've done to people and turn it around so that now you're the good guy in your own story.
Well, I mean, that's what they do.
That's what they do. I just don't know how you do that.
I think that's how you end up becoming that rich and powerful. I think you have to have that to start.
Yeah, I think you're right. There needs to be, like, a disconnect somehow. Did I tell you about that book that Miles has been reading about, like, whether people are inherently good or bad. I can't remember. He wrote a review of it for Yes Magazine, but there was a study done apparently about the effects of like extreme wealth and power on the brain, and evidently it affects you like mild brain damage. Like it causes actual changes in the way your brain processes information. And that fucking tracks to me. Like,
that 100% feels right to me.
Yep.
I mean, yeah, we're watching that in real time. We're watching people with incredible wealth try to convince a bunch of poor people that they should really be ready to die for their like $12 an hour job, and like don't have a bit of conscience about it. They don't feel weird. They don't see where that is wrong. It just it makes perfect sense to them. So yeah, I would not be surprised that is testable. That you could actually quantify that is a real thing that happens to people's brains.
Yeah.
Because I don't know what else fucking explains it. Of course it's
right. Honestly, that is part of it as well to me. It's just like, well, I don't know how else to explain the fucking things that I've seen in terms of like sudden about faces and attitudes and stuff. So yeah, that explains it as well as anything, I guess.
Yeah, I guess it's almost like encouraging because you can be like, well, at least they weren't born evil.
I guess, yeah. And it makes you wonder, like, how many of them told themselves they would not let that happen to themselves? Like, me knowing this information from, hearing secondhand about it from Miles, do I have confidence that I would not also fall prey to that sort of hubris, change in behavior? I don't know that I have any more ability to resist that change than the other people who have succumbed to it. I don't know.
I mean, we were talking before we started recording about rolling.
Oh yeah.
Whatever the fuck. I don't even care if I say her name right anymore.
Who
fuck
gives
that.
a shit? Yeah.
But yeah, like wondering if she was always this way, if this thing that leads her to be as violently transphobic as she is, was that always in her? Or, is that a little bit of some, too much wealth, brain rot happening? I don't know. I don't know.
I love that. Being like such an awkward but actual title for this. It's called Too Much Wealth Brain Rot. It happens when there's too much wealth. Very, very technical.
In your brain rot. So they go, Dolores is showing Caleb, what happens to everyone else. And there's a surprise hologram. From Sirach.
Sirach cannot fucking help sticking his nose into everybody's lives every second. This dude is so insufferable.
And basically, this is a hello that he has programmed to greet his brother. And it is saying, like, if you're seeing this, that means you woke up, which means our experiment worked, and huzzah, it's a new day. And he says, unfortunately, I won't be here with you.
Yeah.
And what do you think of that?
I mean, I don't know what the fuck. Like, the way he says you woke up implies to me that his brother's frozen in here somewhere.
That's
and
what
like,
it feels like.
What is saying, like, oh, you woke up? Is this supposed to be like they're all undergoing long-term conditioning while in these, like, pods?
That's what he says. He says that, wait, I'm waiting for it to get to the part. Oh my God, it's so funny because when the thing pops up, Caleb was like, what the fuck?
I love Caleb so much, honestly.
Dolores has, like, very little reaction.
She's just like, oh, this guy.
But he says, it's taking forever. He's basically like, Rehoboam saw that you could be fixed, but it would take time, and we needed genetic information to go in and change the parts of you that were wrong.
Right.
And so that's what's happening with these people. Mm-hmm. But then he says the man that I was no longer exists. And it could be time, right? Like maybe it's 100 years later. But the way it's phrased, the man I was no longer exists.
Yeah.
It feels like he's saying more.
Yeah, I'm like, is he a host as well? Because he appears in the simulation with Maeve at one point. And, I mean, how is that possible if they haven't, like, kind of made a Pearl version of him? Right?
He appears in the simulation that he's created for Maeve when she's in the field.
Right.
I just figured that. I actually thought that was probably like very easy, like just an extension of the holograms that we've been seeing that are used.
Oh, like the VR thing?
Mm-hmm.
That's interesting. Okay.
So it's like something very like this is like an answering machine message or whatever, like you just pop the tape and it's a rock, only it's also like visual. The thing with Maeve is a little bit more complicated, but I wasn't particularly hung up on that considering what we're supposed to believe his system is, capable of.
Right, yeah. Okay. I don't know then. I don't have any theory about Sirach. Like, Sirach, for all I know, like, Sirach is his brother. This whole story was never what it looked like. You know what I mean? Like, who fucking knows? This show does fucking loop-de-loops and okey-dokes and ballywops and
right.
fetty-waps.
I took it as it being kind of like I've had to do things.
Right. That's what it sounded like.
The me that you knew would never have done. Mm-hmm. So, so this is when Caleb gets the full breadth of how many people are here. And it's a fucking lot, y'all.
Yeah. Like, at first I thought it was only one deep, and then the camera sort of, like, pans downward, and you see that they're stacked on top of each other.
It looks like the fucking Senate in Star Wars.
Right, it does. Oh, my God, it does.
Like, I expected them all to, like, rise up and then, like, flare out.
They're just
Palpatine's gonna come up in the middle.
It really does look like the fucking batteries in The Matrix. It
does look very similar to that. Only, I guess, in this case, instead of them being batteries and being, drained to power something, they are being, I guess, injected in some manner with something. So we have some more of Caleb figuring out what exactly is happening in his memories. And the short of it is him and his friend Francis come home and they are being used to hunt down other outliers.
Right.
Which is just disgusting.
Yep.
It is so obscene.
Yep.
There's just the idea of using someone to go after other people like them, it just is especially gross to me for, lots of different connotations it has, throughout history. But it's just really upsetting. And this insurgent that he thinks that they have is really just another high-level executive. He's a pharmaceutical guy who makes the limbics that they're taking. Mm-hmm. And he found out some shit that he was not supposed to know.
Yeah, do we get details on that?
Well, he knows about the rehabilitation or reprogramming.
Oh, so
center.
it's just the whole existence of this thing that he knows.
Mm-hmm.
Gotcha, yeah. Well,
and
that would be something you don't want to know. That makes sense.
And he tells... Because Caleb is not supposed to take the fucking tape off,
mm-hmm.
right? And he does, which is his first mistake. And he tells them about, because first he's like, you don't even know what you're doing. You don't even know who you work for.
Mm-hmm.
That kind of thing. And you think it's not really going to go anywhere, because that's what every bad guy says.
I mean, the whole thing is supposed to be, and as Francis says, we don't know and we don't care. Like, the point is that they don't question it because they don't care, because they're just getting paid. Mm-hmm. So, yeah, one would kind of think that wouldn't work. I'd wonder if he knew exactly what to say to get it to, like, get their attention, or if it just was a coincidence that it worked as well as it did. Because it works real well, spoilers.
Yeah.
It makes immediately, we've got Caleb sort of being like, what do you mean? What are you talking about? I'm just like, no, Caleb, shut up.
Like, this guy even knows where the facility is. Like, he knows it's in Mexico. And he says one or two things that make Caleb start to, like, flashback. Do you remember, what you were doing before this? Did you ever ask yourself how you ended up with the same exact job that you had while you were in the military?
Right.
Isn't that coincidence? And he starts to tell him that they're going to kill me, and they're going to kill you now because you know what I know.
Exactly, right? Yeah.
And then he puts the little bug in Caleb's ear about, they're going to offer your buddy some money to kill you. And then Caleb's memory was, they kidnap this guy, they wait for evacuation, it never comes, they go to try to escort him out, and they get ambushed. And that's what he thinks has happened. By the end of the episode, we know that really what happened is they take the guy outside because Francis has said it's time to go. And Caleb is very suspicious and wants to see his phone. And then finally it's just like, how much? How much did they pay you? And it's very sad.
It is sad.
And him reliving this memory for what must for him feel like the first time, because it's been gone, right? Mm-hmm. He's having a rough day.
Yeah. Yeah, things are not going super well for Caleb today. The idea that they trusted each other so much and were still able to be made to turn on each other like this. Like, it's really easy to just be like, oh, money and people and greed. But I have just so gotten over the whole insinuation that money mattering to you makes you inherently a greedy person, that I can't even, like, I understand being placed in a situation where money feels like it's the only thing that's going to fix things. And that is not to say that were I placed in a situation like this, I would ever be able to take the money. I don't think I could do that. I just don't. But these are dudes who have been, like, specifically specifically going out and targeting people for death. And I would imagine that does come with some desensitization. Yeah. You know?
I think that what you have with Caleb and Francis is you have, first of all, that they were outliers. Mm-hmm. That they are both really, I don't want to just say, like, high, because the things that they're taking, right, they're mood alterers, but they're much more in, like, the antidepressant kind of, as opposed to being, like, recreational, like we saw with, like, genre or whatever. So you have people who are trained killers who have been killing people on command for a while now, who have been altered, who are taking these psychotropic drugs, and have the additional pressures of needing money for whatever, like for Francis and we assume his kid, right?
Right.
I don't know if another person would have made the same choice that Francis does and just take the money. Like to your point, I don't think we're supposed to believe it was just money to turn Francis, right? Like
that's interesting.
I feel like he was all those other things needed to be in place in order for the money to be enough to make him turn on Caleb the way he does.
Okay.
I don't think that and there's a moment, and this could just be because he was dying, but after Caleb shoots him and he's like, has him on the ground, he's got his hands on his chest and they're all bloody and everything, like all the flashbacks, it looks like he takes Caleb's hand.
Oh. Hold on, I'm going to go to that spot. Fuck.
And again,
I can't find the spot. Wait.
That could just be what happens when you're shot in the chest 5 times.
Right.
It might not mean anything.
He looks so... I like when the camera pans around after he says, you got an offer, a personal, then show me your phone. And there's something about the way that Francis looks in that shot that makes him look much smaller and more like... It's suddenly like much less threatening and a little bit more pathetic than he did a second ago. There have been very few wide shots of him or Caleb.
Right.
And
he looks...
They just look so young, even though I know they're not really, but they look small and,
Yeah. And he looks, ashamed, really. Is what he looks like. And he finally just says to answer, like, how much, he just says enough.
Yeah.
And then, like, right before that, Caleb gets a personal on his app. And we find out at some point when Solomon is monologuing that the app is also controlled.
You're right. He holds his hand after Caleb says, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right? But that the app was a way to control crime. Because they couldn't really, I guess, get rid of our criminal instinct in humanity. That people would, so this they devised a system where they could kind of be in charge.
Right.
Or at least monitor it, So that Rico app that he's working from at the beginning of the season, doing his little small jobs, is the same thing that him and Francis were using. Yeah.
It all comes back around.
Yeah.
Well, I did wonder how you could have an app like that function. I just didn't understand how that could possibly be a thing.
In a world that was this connected, it seems ludicrous that you could have this underground app that, like, is that fully functioning, that somehow is completely off the radar of whoever your law enforcement is.
Exactly.
Right? So it makes sense that it's kind of like it's like a red light district, in a city.
Right.
Well, we know you're gonna all want to fucking, do all kinds of shenanigans and debauchery. So just keep it to this like little 4-block area. Yeah. So I think we're up to Maeve and Dolores.
Yeah, I think so. Because basically, it's fight.
Yeah.
Right? Like, that's what we need to know is that. And they both look incredibly badass. You and I were talking beforehand about how noticeable it is in the scene in particular, how absolutely tiny they both are. And how weird it is that they look like they are the average size of a person when they're on screen, when we know that should we have seen either of these women in person, we'd be like, oh my God, she's so petite. Especially when Dolores comes out in her like her all black like tank top and Lara Croft kind of outfit is what I keep thinking of with her.
Her Sarah Connors.
Yeah. Because Lara Croft had like the short shorts, and I don't feel like she would do that. Although we have seen her fight in like stilettos before, so I guess. But yeah, I really did not expect Maeve to be able to stand up to Dolores. I know.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I know that Maeve is a badass when she's in one of these simulations, because she can control people's like and predict what they are about to do, right? Mm-hmm. So I like in that scenario, the fact that she can do what she can do makes sense to me. But in this, I was like, she's going up against somebody who has sort of like come into her own mind. It's not even her own mind. Like, it's so complicated with Dolores because like she's basically a fusion of the Dolores character she had been and Wyatt, right? Mm-hmm. The Wyatt character. So she has it like programmed into her to be able to fight, and has been kind of doing this longer than Maeve.
Yeah, she's
and
been
I feel
fucking
like
people up all season.
Yeah, so I was sort of just anticipating that she was just going to be better at it. And that's not Maeve's fault, but Maeve hasn't been doing this as long, and Maeve wasn't given the advantage of being programmed to be able to do this stuff. Mm-hmm. You know? So I figured like maybe...
I mean, she programmed herself to be pretty fucking badass. But,
yeah, that's true. She did do that. I forgot about that. You got me there.
But I think your point is fair as far as like what does their hand-to-hand combat look like, because we have been watching Dolores fight, you know, a bunch of people all season, and
mostly mopes.
Bringing back mopes.
Yeah.
And we've only seen Maeve in... Well, we saw her in the park, where we watched her fuck up plenty of people in the park. But this season, she's been in the Construct, or when she fought the other Dolores in the Mortician,
right?
And she lost that fight.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so maybe that's part of what made me feel like that, was that she had lost that one.
Yeah, so I think it was, I think it's reasonable to be like, can she hold her own against Dolores?
Yeah.
Turns out.
It looks like she's about to. And then as soon as she like has the upper hand for real, Dolores smacks that EMP button and brings both of them down. Mm-hmm. Because they do just still... It's such a strange combo of like human flesh and mechanical electric components in these hosts, so like there was a part of me that instantly was like, oh, of course an EMP would work on them, and then I was like, wait, would it? And then yes, it would. Wait, yes, no. And I like argued with myself like for 5 minutes about it until I was finally like, yeah, they have both. That's the point. Honestly, that's like kind of close to how most of my days go, though. It's just me arguing with myself for 20 minutes about a thing.
Yeah. I mean, anything.
About everything. A thing nobody gives a fuck about, too.
All the things. About a thing that I probably won't even remember the next day, but I'll spend 20 fucking minutes going back and forth about it at the time.
Yep. Anyway.
We talked about Caleb. We talked about Francis. So the episode kind of goes back to Caleb in front of Solomon while Dolores is still finishing the fight with Maeve. she loses her arm from the elbow down. Oh. And I was unprepared for that gruesomeness.
That was so unexpected and so upsetting. That whole, like, I don't know what it was about the suddenness of it and the fact that it's like from a fucking missile or whatever it was. It's just really like, okay, everybody. Let's be cool.
Everybody, let's just calm down.
You know, like, this show just... If you told me that while they're fighting, she loses her arm to a missile, not the fucking 4-foot-long katana that Maeve is wielding. No. It's a remote weapon that's firing on them while they're in the middle of their fight. I would just be like, that sounds like a bit much.
And
you know what? I think I would be right to say so.
Oh, Lord. Yeah, that was so unexpected. I mean, I didn't really know I had such clear expectations on certain things until, you know, they're met or not met or exceeded. Yep. Then I'm just like, holy fuck.
Exactly.
So, yeah, it ends kind of with Maeve and Dolores go down, and Caleb is staring at this fucking thing, and he is practically out of his mind.
Yep.
And we get a quick cut to Stubbs and Bernard and the Man in Black and trying to get transportation because the world is in chaos. And he finds a fucking shotgun. Ugh, they should have just shot him in the head when they had to chance.
I am so bored of this guy.
So
Can I just say that? Ugh. Every fucking expression that Stubbs had on his face was correct. This dude should be dead, and Bernard, you are fucking it all up. You did not look so good in those fucking suspenders. I would just want you off the show.
Oh,
I am bored of both of them. I am bored of Black William, and I am bored of fucking soft-hearted Bernard.
Are you bored of soft-hearted Bernard?
I am. Because this dude doesn't even know what's going on. Like, he's just giving everybody the benefit of the doubt all the time. And it's so unwarranted. And it will bite him in the ass. And like, look,
I mean,
I can be too trusting sometimes, but I guess
he can only be what he's like programmed to be.
Can he? Is that all he can be?
I mean, he hasn't hit that little clicker button to be the other Bernard since like the first fucking episode. You know, where's that Bernard?
Now, where is that Bernard?
That Bernard would have shot William in the fucking head and kept it pushing.
I just wanted so much when William turns around and he's like, so if you're gonna shoot me, shoot me. God, I fucking wanted Stubbs to shoot him so bad. I was super annoyed that like...
That would have been really great, right?
Wouldn't it? Just this like arrogant motherfucker just like, ha, you're not gonna... I guess that happened once already with Dolores, so it'd be kind of played, I guess, to do it again, but...
Yeah, you're right. I forgot about that.
Yeah.
So yeah, they're out talking about Caleb, and wondering like what he has to do with Dolores' whole plan. William shows up with the gun. Then it cuts back to fucking Caleb, who's got a look on his face that says he wants to just burn the whole world down, which I have to imagine, according to Bernard, is exactly what Dolores was hoping for.
Yep.
And he comes across her... is there an opposite of... I'm trying to say...
Foil?
No, I was trying to say, like... I didn't want to say lifeless. I wanted to say, like, she's no longer animated, and I couldn't think what the word was. I guess I'll just say...
static.
Sleep mode. Dolores is in sleep mode. I almost said de-animated, and then I was like, that is not a word.
Is that not a word?
I don't think so.
Disanimated?
I also don't think so.
Unanimated. Yeah, I'm trying to think of... All I keep thinking of is the word static, and I know that's not the word I want, but I'm looking up static. What's the word?
Look up the animated.
I am not looking that up.
Okay, I'll look that one up. Google's going to be like, bitch, what?
Static synonyms. Unchanged, fixed, invariable, undeviating. No, that's not what's static.
No, because what I want is to be like the opposite. Like, she wasn't alive. So that's why I went with animated, right? When she's up and conscious. But now she's just... Fuck it. I'm going to call it sleep mode. I don't know what else to fucking call it.
I'm looking... I looked up lifeless synonyms. Hold on. I'm going to... These are funny, some of them. The synonyms for lifeless. This is brutal. Bare, barren, comatose, inert. How about inert?
I doesn't feel right.
Okay. Uninhabited.
Deanimated is a word.
Deanimated?
Yeah.
Oh, well, there it is.
Apparently, it's a chemistry. To remove the amino group from a compound.
Oh my God.
That is not what I'm...
Inanimate.
That's the word.
Fuck. I can't believe it took so long to get there. We had the whole word except for the first syllable. Christ's sake. Everybody was screaming at their phones just now. I'm so sorry, everyone, that you had to watch that.
And I cannot believe... Y'all, I'm so tired. The world is on fire. My brain is mush. And I don't know what else to say. I'm deeply, deeply sorry.
Okay. Well, that's done. That's done. Let's move on. So, he comes across her inanimate form.
Oh my God.
Stop it.
I will be thinking about that for the next 50 years. I'll be trying to sleep at 2 o'clock in the morning, and then my brain will be like, hey, remember that time you didn't know the word inanimate? On the podcast for the whole world to hear. Remember that? Remember when that happened?
Tragic. Anyway, so yeah, he comes across... What does he do when he finds her? I don't even remember what happens here.
It just cuts.
Okay, so you don't see his reaction to that or anything. Okay.
There's a voiceover that says, I have some instructions for you.
Right. And he took that drive that has the outline for creating the revolution, which I wouldn't mind a copy of that, PT Jones.
So what do you think? I don't want to stay. Oh my God, it's 11:20.
Yeah, I'm going to be honest, and it's not just because Rashawn has got to go, but I don't have any theories. I really don't know what fucking Caleb does. I don't know how you deal with the EMP that just happened. I don't know anything. So that's the show. Thanks for listening.
I'm excited. And we got a lot of moving pieces out in this world, and only one episode
to try to one episode left.
Try to make sense of it. So we'll see. We'll see how they do, kids.
I do not understand how there's one episode left with all this shit. I just don't. I mean, I know that they have another season coming. So they will be there will be plenty of room to leave things unfinished here. But I just don't know what parts they're going to leave unfinished, I guess. Because that'll happen sometimes with the show. I'll think there's going to be a thing that's going to be a big deal, and it just gets wrapped next episode. And then it turns out that the season's going to be about something else. Do you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. It could be. I mean, look what they did from season 2 to this season.
Yeah.
So, yeah. All right, I guess we'll see.
Yeah, I guess we'll see. Well, thanks everybody so much for listening. I hope that you have been enjoying the coverage. And I really do want to apologize for the inanimate, deanimate thing.
Oh my god!
What did you say it was when it was chemistry?
It was removing an amino from a group. Whatever the fuck that means.
Okay, well, yes, that makes my dad.
Like I was shocked because I was pretty sure deaminate wasn't a word, and then it popped up.
Well, it's not because you just said deaminate.
Deanimated. So it's a word, but it's not a real word. It's like a specialized word, and I don't count those.
Yeah, I think that's fair. Between this and before we started, Rashawn and I were looking up how some encryption worked, and they were talking about salting hashes. And so between that and you telling me about how it's like removing amino acids, when my dad would, when you would try and explain something to him that he didn't understand, his response would be, "Oh, now I understand less." He'd make it sound like he got it, and then at the very last word is, "Nope. Now I understand less." That sounds like exactly what's been happening to me all goddamn day.
Now I understand less. That's really good. I enjoy that. Okay.
All right, guys. Well, thanks a lot for listening. Sorry that I understand less, and we will see you next week with a new episode. Until then, toodaloo, motherfuckers.
Bye, guys.
That was an Unspoiled Network podcast.